Uninterrupted Women's Society live on YouTube and Instagram. Juliet, what are we talking about today?
We are talking about the Book of the Dead. So how exciting. It's really, really interesting, a really big part of the New Kingdom and mummies and, written on tombs. So it's going to be a really cool thing to go over.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't wait to kind of get into the 12 gates of the underworld and
Ooh, Lisa, you're frozen already. Are you out?
Yeah, sorry, I'm just trying to connect us properly to Instagram because we're not on Instagram. So, Julia, why don't you just go ahead and tell us about your day today? How was your day? What are you up
to? My day is getting up early and getting children off to school and chasing a bus who did not stop for me, who made me very, very mad. So I'm not going to go into that. Like, I literally was like 5 meters away from the bus stop and he just kept driving and then literally waved his finger at me, was like, no, I'm not stopping. So I replied in a very I had to be very careful because I was surrounded by children. But
would have ripped him a new one.
I ripped him a new one, kind of. But when I see him again, I will quietly.
Next time I see that guy.
Yeah, oh my God, he's just the bus driver who basically, I've seen him shut doors in people's faces because they haven't gone to the right door. And so he's let people off on the back of the bus and then people have tried to hop on and he's literally shut the door in their faces and driven off without them. He's just a piece of work. That's the nicest thing I can say right now.
It was like a really nice
piece
fellow.
of work. Yeah.
We're just trying to link into Instagram, so we'll just let's get started on kind of some of the cool stuff that's happening around the world at the moment. We are talking about the Egyptian Book of the Dead today, but and in light of Juliet going to Egypt in November, which is ridiculously exciting.
It is almost 1 month away, so yes, so excited.
Yeah, man, it's so cool. And I don't know that we can get onto Instagram right now, so I think we might just stream live to YouTube. So if you're with us, yeah.
Do we want to send a message on Insta? Just to
so let's just chat because we're live on YouTube, and let's do this live on YouTube. And anyone that's on Instagram, they know they can pop on over to YouTube because I have already posted it. So some of the weird stuff that's happening around the world right now, there's this whole UFO disclosure stuff going on, right? Have you heard about this, Jules?
Not too much. I mean, I've seen that there's just been a lot of sightings around, and some really good footage is coming out. We're always very skeptical, if not more now, because of AI stuff. But some of the stuff it's pretty out there, and it's becoming clearer, and it's happening more often. And we do say, because everyone's got phones, but I think it's just becoming a little bit more in your face at the moment. And I think that's part of the plan, as we talk about, isn't it? They want us to kind of see these things now and kind of, I don't know. It's
no, you bang on. And there's a theory around Project Bluebeam, which is this disclosure idea, which is well documented throughout American governments and other governments. And that gives weight to the idea that these UFOs are being seen more often, all this sort of stuff. And I think my biggest question is, are they real interdimensional UFOs, or are they man-made military reverse technology? Because I heard a story the other day, and it was from a New Zealand guy up north, and he was talking about Bigfoot, and he was saying that around the times that he was seeing and hearing these Bigfoot creatures and having these encounters and sightings, there was also a whole heap of cattle mutilations on his farm. And also the one thing that got him was, and I'll find this whole interview for you, it's really interesting. It's by one of the a big cryptozoologist in New Zealand. But I'll find the whole thing and I'll pop it onto some snippets onto Instagram because it's really interesting. But anyway, so this guy talks about the weird stuff that happened around this UFO. He goes, it was literally crankshafts and bolts, and he said I could hear the internal mechanisms working. He said I've always lived on a farm. I fix things for a living, and when you live up north on an island, you have to fix everything, right? It's not like you're just going to go out to the local shop and buy a new one because there ain't no local shop. So you have to fix everything. So you know what old engines sound like. You know what these nuts and bolts and things like this moving around and pistons and that sort of stuff sound like. And he was like, it just sounded like a drone, but it wasn't a drone because it was doing other stuff. He was like, it wasn't a drone per se, but maybe it was some sort of man-made sort of situation. He was like, it's definitely not some intergalactic, interdimensional creature of light or being, like a vehicle of light, which is what we get told that these UFOs are. If it's a real UFO from another dimension or planet,
there's no sound. There's no sound. That's it. Yeah.
No propulsion systems. You feel that propulsion system.
Or maybe it's like a hum, isn't it? A hum is something, that they're saying like the energy type hum, but never kind of mechanical kind of working.
Yeah. So I found that really interesting because I was like, I think there's more and more evidence to show that the military corporations have started really investing in these machines, in this reverse engine.
Or you've got to be like, hang on, don't be mean to the aliens. It could be just a new group coming down. They're experimenting with their new ships and they're not quite up to scratch.
Rubbish.
They've only managed to be able to afford an old ship. So, just saying, we're going to kind of put it out there. It could be an old ship. So, because we look about the old days, it was all the sources and stuff. But how often do you see those things now? They've all kind of like got flasher and, they're more modern.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's really interesting, and it could actually be quite relevant in that maybe it's just a new thing, right?
New people.
Maybe it's just a new peoples.
New peoples, new aliens, new members of the Galactic Federation. Who knows?
Maybe.
Like, go on down, go have a look. And they'll be like, oh my God. They'll be sitting there going, Jesus Christ, this ship's a bit weird.
But again.
Let's give them some tips. You ain't going to be able to kidnap anybody with that ship, mate. Are you looking? Oh, yeah, you're back. Yeah, no.
Sorry, I'm back. I'm just trying to reset it on Instagram for us guys because I really want to get in here, but I just don't know if I can. Sorry.
But yeah, no, it is, and I saw a story the other day, and I lost it, which I'm super annoyed about. But it was literally about a family it was over in the States having massive like Bigfoot kind of activity, but also having a huge amount of UFO activity and orbs and just like all around the same time. It's just like this continuous thing of Bigfoot and UFOs and orbs and stuff like that. So it was on a podcast, so if anybody knows which one it was. So I kind of flicked through. I was flicking through at work when I should have been working, but and it popped up and I was like, oh my God, that's so cool. And then like it refreshed and I lost it. I'm like, but
yeah. So many stories of UFOs and Bigfoot and UFOs and cryptids together, right? Or orbs and cryptids. So I find that really interesting. And if you look at like Egypt, my God, the amount of UFO activity that they have over there and through the Middle East is insane.
Yeah, honestly, I'm not sure because we were in Jordan, we were going to go over to Jordan and Petra, but because of the troubles over there, that's probably not going to be an option. So when we were going over there, we were actually going to be staying in a Bedouin cave, which was basically sleeping out at night. You have to basically go pee around the corner, and these big camel spiders, and I wasn't very happy about it, but I was going to do it because it would have been awesome. But so we're still going to try and find somewhere, but like, you know, like I would just love to be able to kind of like sit there outside and just kind of see what's happening up in the sky, because man, I reckon, you know, can you imagine that, just sitting there in the dark watching the pyramids and just seeing if anything happens.
My God.
It's definitely on my list. It's yeah.
Who would that be, right?
Yeah. So that's kind of like one of my things. Is I know there's like some cafes and stuff that kind of are right out there, but I don't know if it's like a nighttime thing, because like I know a lot of the stuff is closed at night in certain areas and around the pyramids and that kind of stuff. But yeah, we're hoping to kind of, we're going to do a little bit of all sorts, you know, a little bit of cryptid hunting, a little bit of UFO hunting, connecting up some of those little alien things, and yeah. So
that's going to be phenomenal.
Taking a really close look at some of those hieroglyphics, and if anybody has any kind of weird and out there like alien connection hieroglyphs or cryptids type things that they know of in certain areas, please like send them to us. You know, we do have, you know, like the helicopter hieroglyphs at Abydos, the light bulb one in Hathor's temple, you know, and stuff like that.
Wi-Fi hand.
Yeah, so we know there's definitely stuff there that we've already kind of pinpointed, but you know, there's always like so much stuff there that we don't even know about. So my son even gave me a list. I think we said last week. He gave me a list of stuff that he found that I had no idea about. So that was super exciting. So it's just
it's such an experience. I think going to Egypt is on everyone's bucket list. I mean, if you ask any person that has any interest into ancient histories or civilizations or aliens or cryptids, you know, one of the top bucket list locations is Egypt, right? And I, you know, like I studied Egypt when I was at school, and so I am so incredibly jealous that she is going without me, but it's fine.
Hey, look, you know, it's like I've been getting a lot of feedback because we're not doing a tour, and it's been very fear-based feedback, and it's okay. It's like, you know, we've got people over there. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
You
like
go in a tour group. So the suggestions to you.
Oh, absolutely. Don't backpack there. Oh my God, it's too dangerous. And it's not like that. You know, like we follow a lot of podcasters, and I actually had one that oh my God, what's her name? I'll put a link in. She's absolutely fantastic. She's an American girl. She lives over there. She travels by herself. And she literally just did an update on any issues that are over there. There's like nothing going on. You know, and Egypt's always been fairly safe. And, you know, for those of you that don't go because of the cost, like my son and I are backpacking, and it is going to cost us possibly an eighth of what some of these tour companies are charging. And, you know, they're just astronomical, the amounts that they're charging for what you're doing. And it's like, you know, so I'm kind of, you know, a little part of it is going to be like, hey, look, this is kind of where we're staying. This is, you know, how we found it as well. So it's going to be like a little bit of a kind of a travel thing as well, of going, hey, look, this is a really cool place. This is how much it is to get in. So it's just going to be, it's going to be like a great trip. I honestly have no worries about my own safety or Ricky's safety. And also we're both very respectful. I'm not going to be going out there in tiny little shorts and tiny little tank tops and stuff like that. You just don't do that. You know, you be respectful of their customs and stuff. So, and I think that's, you know, that's a big part of it. So
100%. And you're bang on in the going and being respectful, you know, and there's so many tourists that show up as tourists. I think it's different for you, Juliet, because you're showing up as researchers, essentially. You know, doing a lot of business over there, a little bit of holidaying, obviously, but you're not necessarily being a tourist. And then you take a different approach to things, because you go in from a positive, good intent, a caring, a respectful space, and that changes your entire trip. And I am just overly jealous. I don't want to talk about it anymore. Shut up. Don't want to talk about it.
All right, so let's get on. Okay, so Lisa's talked about little alien stuff. I'm going to talk a little bit of news. It's kind of connected with Egypt, and it's about Tutankhamun. So this is something that we just found out the other day. So this is a story that Lisa normally does. It's about phalluses.
Not my whole world doesn't revolve around penises, okay? Just a small amount.
So basically, Tutankhamun, apparently when he was pulled out, eventually they opened up his sarcophagus and pulled him out. Apparently he had a very full member which was standing erect. Yeah, boing. And apparently that was how he was basically mummified. But the interesting thing is that his little erection disappeared and they thought that it had been stolen.
Oh my God, like disappeared, like was taken.
Like disappeared, you know, so, but I don't know.
Why was he mummified with a stiffy?
Okay, so basically they reckon it's part of him being happy about going into the underworld and showing his pleasure on it. So I don't know. But apparently he's not the only mummy that's had that, and it's something that's just not talked about, which I just found absolutely
that's excellent. Okay,
hilarious.
I'm just going to take a quick note. Research Egyptian mummies.
All right, so I have probably frozen here. I'll just read you a little bit about it. So when Tutankhamun was first discovered by Howard Carter and his team in 1922, all his parts were present and correct, a bit in some dire need of moisturizer, which I found really, really funny. So
he was dehydrated.
He was very dehydrated. So Carter and his boys cut up the body into pieces, and a lot of people don't realize that to get Tutankhamun out, they literally cut his legs off, and his head and everything to pull him out. And then he was kind of stuck back together. Yeah, which is pretty bad. So, and better to prize free the jewelry that was stuck to his mummified remains. They severed his head with hot knives and stuff, and basically cut stuff off of him, which is pretty nasty. So after such uninhibited plundering, it should not come as such a great surprise when the mummy was x-rayed by experts at the University of Liverpool in 1968, and it appeared that someone had made off with more than the antique amulets. Like McCavity's mystery cat, Tutankhamun's willy was not there.
You bastards!
So there was like this big thing, who's got Tutankhamun's willy? So
who does have it?
Oh no, this is where it gets a little bit thingy. So basically,
honestly, Juliet, the show is phenomenal. This is why I love working with you, because I just never know what you're going to bring to the table. I try and be serious, okay?
So there's speculation that the penis had been stolen and sold. So, but instead, it was actually always there. So during a CT scan in 2005, when the mummy was lifted, it laid in the loose sand around his body. So basically, it had been snapped off or cut off like his legs and just chucked into the sand. So Tutankhamun's willy is now back with his body.
Honestly, every man that's watching this right now is just
like,
God. Oh my Lord.
Yeah, which I thought was absolutely hilarious. But you don't hear about that in the history books, do you? Yes, they cut off his legs, they cut off his head. Well, a lot of people don't even know that. They don't even know that he was chopped into pieces, and he literally had like the amulets and everything cut off of him. And yeah, it was a little bit
talk about rough.
Yeah. No, it's like if you're in the afterlife and that's happening, I'd come back and haunt you too. So
well, there were a whole heap of curses around Tutankhamun's tomb and stuff, and the opening of all of that stuff, and there was a lot of people saying that they got sick and everything else, and some
heap of people died from different nefarious reasons. It's really, really interesting. So I just thought that was a really funny
Well, that gives way more understanding and kind of, I guess, a little bit of weight to. I had no idea he was cut up. And
Oh, okay.
I didn't know that. And I've studied Egypt and I've done Tutankhamun and
Yeah,
I've seen,
it doesn't say, they try and keep quiet about that. So
so wow, that's so interesting. That's so interesting. And it just shows you why, I guess one of the reasons why Egyptians have this fascination of afterlife, right? Life after life. And they really see it as a second life, as a transfer, versus a finishing or an end point. Whereas, if you're an atheist, you see this as being it, and then there is nothing else. And it kind of it makes me feel sad for people that are sitting there just going, "There's nothing else,"
Yeah.
There's
Oh, yeah.
right?
Hi, Misha. Did I say it's a Mishaya? Mishaya? Sorry if I just ruined your name.
Yeah, so Michelle is also our Kelsey over on Instagram. Welcome to
Oh,
the YouTube
hello.
side. Thank you for coming and jumping on board with us today. We appreciate it so much.
Yeah. Oh, look, honestly, like it's so funny. Like the more we delve into this, oh my God, it's like, am I going to God? Am I going to a goddess? Am I going to aliens? Am I going,
Yeah, where am I heading?
Like, I know there's something up there. So, I absolutely believe there's something else afterwards. There's just, we've seen too much, talked too much about it, all that kind of stuff. Whether it be like the God side, spiritual, whether it be freaking aliens, who knows?
Yeah.
It would just be like, all right, we'll see when I get up there, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And the Egyptians, be it ancient Egyptian or the modern kingdoms of the pharaohs, they were big believers in the underworld and the transition through life. So, one of the things that I have, can I start, Jules? Or
Yeah, you go, because you told me something about it. You got it, and it said Mish Islet. Oh, peacekeeper. Oh, yay!
She actually is, compared to us two. Like, we'll go at it, and Kelsey's like, just calm down.
You can be our peacekeeper. Yeah.
Right
Yeah,
on.
you go, because you mentioned a little thing this morning, and I was like, oh.
Yeah, so one of the things that we, as a lot of you know that kind of have followed us for a while, we have this topic and then we go ahead and we research on different sides, and occasionally we share little tidbits of information to keep each other on track. But then we come together and we drop information, like Juliet's dropped about Tutankhamun's willy being lost, and then found, which is fabulous, the fact that he had to have an erection when he went to the underworld amuses me dramatically.
That's a new one. I didn't even know that. That is something that I have learned in the last couple of days. So we shall look into that further.
I tell you what, like, there's got to be something to that. We probably need to do a little bit more research.
It has piqued my interest. Our bad one. I apologize.
Right now, I feel like we should apologize to Mike from Cryptid HQ. Is forever like there's some sort of something going on here. We're sorry, we love you. So as I was looking into this stuff, I thought to myself, okay, I'm going to do, monsters of the Egyptian underworld, as I started looking into the Book of the Dead and kind of all this sort of stuff. And literally, I started collecting this information over the last, couple of weeks. Last night, I stumbled across a book that predates the Book of the Dead. And we know that the Book of the Dead isn't actually a book. And Juliet can go into that a little bit further and kind of unravel that a little bit. And so when we refer to it as a book, it's not really a book. They're scrolls, or they're written on the tombs, or the
tombs, or the coffins,
100%, yeah. So just to make sure that everyone understands
that is getting to the point of things.
Point. So the book that I came across is called The Book of Two Ways. Have you heard of this book, Jules?
Never. No, I have not.
The Book of Two Ways. So what I wanted to do is, instead of me trying to decipher and relay this information from archaeologists and these amazing finds, I figured I'm just going to read directly from a source. Okay, so this is from a website called allthat'sinteresting.com. Book of Two Ways discovery, right? So it's a really great discovery that has recently happened. So the book contained incantations of the for the deceased, so that she could ward off evil spirits and demons in her journey towards the underworld. They talk about a she because it was actually found on a female's tomb or on her coffin as she went into the underworld, or when during her funerary time. Even those who knew little of ancient Egypt's mysteries have heard of the infamous Book of the Dead. And now researchers have found a similar text that not only predates that one, but may also be the oldest illustrated book ever uncovered. And I mean ever, like predating.
What's the dating on it?
Hang on, we'll get there.
Patient.
So, according to the New York Times, Egyptologists found part of an illustrated book that served as a guide to reach Rostal, which is the underworld ruled by Osiris, the Egyptian god of death. So, remembering this is predating the Book of the Dead. So, things have changed a little bit to get to the Book of the Dead, right? But this is a precursor to that. The incredible discovery published in the Journal of Egyptian Archaeology happened at the village, and excuse me for butchering this, Deir el-Barsha or Deir el-Birsha, depending on which dialect you take from, where the cliffside necropolis of the region's governors who ruled during Egypt's Middle Kingdom were laid to rest inside elaborately decorated tombs. In 2012, so we're not that long ago, this is quite recent, but interestingly enough, within that last kind of 10, 12-year period since this was discovered, the likes of who was our girl Sarah
Parkak.
Sarah Parkak is an Egyptologist, and she was talking about her discoveries using satellite imagery as far as ground penetrating imagery to find things like the labyrinth that they found underneath the Temple of Horus, I believe it's in, and I mean a huge labyrinth with 3,000 plus rooms and granite rooftops. That's pretty amazing. And she's talking about like hundreds, if not thousands, of pyramids and temples that have been
I think it was close to 200 pyramids and over 1,000 other like buildings and kind of possible tombs and stuff like that. Yeah, just
so if you look from 2012 when this was published and discovered, you're talking an extra 12 years worth of LiDAR, worth of satellite imagery. So imagine what they're dealing with now, like research must be amazing. Anyway,
they just do not have enough people to basically, it's like, South America and the Amazon, and all these areas. There's just not enough people to actually go out and do these digs, all the money and stuff like that.
And that's something that I remember archaeologists were talking about over in like Greece and around those kind of Italian areas and that sort of stuff. There's so many archaeological dig sites that just sit uncovered, and that's
uncovered, and they have no time or money to do
so in 2012, guided by archaeologist Harco Willem from Belgium's University of Leuven, a team of researchers investigated one of the 5 burial shafts located inside the tomb complex at Anakat, and that's not how you say it, but we'll go with it. 20 feet down inside the burial shaft, the team found the remains of a sarcophagus that appeared to be completely undisturbed, despite the previous presence of grave robbers and other archaeologists at the site. Judging by the remains and the setup of the sarcophagus, it belonged to an elite woman named Ankh, who was related to an elite government official. And in the Middle Kingdom, before all the priests took over, it was governors, which is quite interesting.
Yeah.
Her cedar coffin had deteriorated due to being overrun by fungi, but upon closer inspection, the crumbling casket revealed something unexpected. Inside the sarcophagus were remarkable etchings explicitly quoting from the Book of Two Ways, which is made up of hieroglyphs and illustrations describing Ank's wayward journey into the afterlife.
That's so cool.
Mental, right? Yeah, this is why I was like, oh my God, we've got to talk about this, right? We can't jump it and go to the Book of the Dead. We have to.
Yeah. And oh my God, be even better if we can actually find it and go see it. If it's open, it might not be open.
So these coffin texts tend to situate the deceased in a world of the gods, Willem said. Sometimes they are combined with drawings. At this one site, one frequently encounters books of two ways, which means there's more than one, right? So quite often when they're digging up and doing their research on these sarcophagi and that sort of stuff, they're finding these book of two ways. Pardon me. It goes on to say the ancient Egyptians were obsessed with life in all its forms, explains Rita Lucarelli, curator at the University of California in Berkeley. Death for them was a new life. So it says, now researchers have yet again uncovered evidence that ancient Egypt's elaborate death customs sometimes included providing the deaf with these coffin texts so that they could make their way to the underworld. Remarkably, each person had their own version of the text that was customized based on their status and wealth.
Yep.
It says Ank's guide text incorporated incantations to help her ward off the demons she would encounter on her journey. The arduous trip to reach Rostau, and this is Rostau, and I may be saying that incorrectly. The markings proclaimed would be plagued by obstacles of fire, demons, and spirits that she would have to overcome. This one begins with a text encircled by a red line designated as the Ring of Fire. The text is about the sun god passing this protective fiery ring to reach Osiris. So essentially, the Book of Two Ways starts either on ground or on water, and you can choose which way you go. It starts on two ways, right? And then you have to go through 12 gates. So this is a very shortened version of this, right?
Yeah. So that's interesting. So I wonder if that's because back over there, back in those times, there were so many different gods and goddesses. So I wonder if that preference was of who they basically worshipped. Was it, this god, or was it a sun god, or was it a water?
Yeah. I found that quite interesting that they could choose one of two ways. And I wondered if that was like a status thing also. Like, are you, I'm not quite sure around it. We might get into it. I don't know.
Is this is only coffin text? This is not written text on scroll?
Yeah, this is not scroll. So basically they went from coffin text on the inside of the coffin to then tomb text. So they started then putting them onto the tombs.
Yeah.
And then they started scrolls and popping those within their tombs as well.
Oh,
so researchers estimated the age of Ank's sarcophagus text based on the inscriptions and other relics found nearby that referred to the reign of Pharaoh Mentuhotep.
Of course.
Who ruled until 2010 BCE. That means the original manual from which these texts were copied would be at least 4,000 years old. Let me just say that again. That means the original manual from which these texts were copied would be at least 4,000 years old, likely making it the world's oldest illustrated book ever found. So not what they found, but the book that it was copied from.
Yeah.
The team furthermore found 24 extant texts of the Book of Two Ways, maps inside the burial shaft. Most etchings have been difficult to make out, but the scientists believe the depictions likely illustrate rituals to bring deceased gods or dead humans back to life.
The mummy! Oh my God, the mummy! It was a true story.
One of the things that always got me right was when you look at the Mummy the movie, you know, like the ones that we love, where they go
Brendan
in,
Fraser and all that.
yeah, with Brendan Fraser, they get the Book of the Dead and they can bring someone back to life. That's the whole Book of the Dead thing. That is not the Book of the Dead that we know as the Book of the Dead. And I thought to myself, but these movies come from a place of truth, right? There's always factual truth in it. It's not just made up. That would be a great story. And so when I started reading through this, I went, oh my God, I found it.
So maybe that's the two ways. One way is you're going to the afterlife. The other way is like you're going to be brought back.
Well, no. Both of them take you to the weighing of the heart.
Yeah.
The underworld. Yeah. Where the Mummy, the movie, has brought the Book of the Dead to a place where it has rituals, essentially, to bring somebody back to life. It has come from the Book of Two Ways and these rituals that they've found as illustrations to bring deceased gods or dead humans back to life. So they've pulled from all of these other places that predate the Book of the Dead. Yeah.
I like it. That's cool. I like that. Yeah, no, I mean, that is so interesting. And God, I'd like to go and see some of those coffin scrolls. I mean, I presume they would have some in the museums and stuff like that, because how cool would that be?
Yeah. Well, actually, like, so this, I was actually going to pop up a picture of this, but it's actually just looks like a giant piece of wood, right? You can't really see the hieroglyphs in it. You can't really see the that sort of stuff. So I didn't think it was worth it. But basically, on Ank's coffin, it's got a whole heap of inscriptions, but it's pretty decayed and pretty broken up. And then I think going back into the tunnels, they've found hieroglyphs on the walls. Yeah, absolutely. So can I keep going? Can I introduce you to the 12 gates of the Egyptian underworld?
Yes, you do. Yes, that's right. I'm just trying to.
Okay, cool. So this is all linked to the Book of Two Ways. If you're going to do the Book of Two Ways and you're going to choose your path, like Bob when he had his amazing chariot race and ended up dead. Sorry, Bob. Then if he was in the Middle Dynasties, then he would have to choose his pathway either, one way or the other using the Book of Two Ways. But he's going to have to go through the 12 gates of the Egyptian underworld. And let me just give you a quick rundown. And this is from the same website that I was reading from before. No, it's not. I'm a liar. Sorry. Total lie. This is from a website called ConnollyCove.com, Gates of the Egyptian Underworld. There's an amazing little video on there from a really amazing female Egyptologist who goes through what the 12 gates of the Egyptian underworld are. And if you're interested, jump on ConnollyCove.com. Anyway, I just wanted to give her props because any female in Egyptology is smashing it. Like, we know this.
Yeah.
We know how hard it is. So the 12 gates of the Egyptian underworld. Setting out on a quest into the mind-boggling mythology of ancient Egypt can often feel like wandering through an endless labyrinth, brimming with profound symbolism and layered complexity. Like you, we've spent many hours scratching our heads. And fair cool. He says, today we'll delve into one such conundrum, the intriguing 12 gates of the Egyptian underworld. Basically, he goes through, they draw on archaeological discoveries and all this sort of stuff. But essentially, the Egyptian underworld was known as Duat, D-U-A-T. It is a dark and dangerous place with 12 gates. Each gate has its guard. These guards are the minor deities of ancient Egypt. They keep the entrances to the underworld safe. Dead souls must pass through each of these gates to Osiris's kingdom. This journey is hard and scary. The souls need skills to face demons and strange creatures along the way, where they might face the wicked knife-wielding demons guarding the paths.
That explains that picture so much.
last week, right? Of the knife holding, yes.
Egyptian. We're like, what is he doing? Making sushi?
Yeah. Guardian of the Underworld, one of the gates. So each of the 4 directions in Duat holds 3 gates. So I did not know this, and I feel like it was a really good precursor for Juliet to get into the Book of the Dead, right? So once you go into Duat, into the Underworld, each of the 4 directions holds 3 gates, each signifying the sun, the moon, and the stars respectively. These 3 also represent parts of Egyptian cosmology. Archaeologists found an ancient Egyptian book called the Book of Two Ways, which guides souls through the underworld. The book demonstrates obstacles that dead people may encounter in their quest for the afterlife, like crossing over fire lakes. Oh, it's just so good. And then at the end, once they reach Osiris, they who weighs their hearts and decides whether or not they are worthy, and Juliet will go into all of that sort of stuff, just so that we can find that connection of so many years in between, right?
Yeah.
Love it. Description and significance of the 12 gates of the Egyptian underworld. The gates of the Egyptian underworld are essential and significant in their mythology. There are 12 gates, each guarded blah, 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 blah. They mark significant transitions for the deceased as they faced challenges and tests to reach Osiris, the god of death and resurrection. Hold, please. The significance of these gates is evident in ancient texts like the Book of Gates, the depictions found in tombs from ancient Egypt. Have you heard of the Book of Gates?
Yes, I've heard of the Book of Gates.
Good. Yeah. So this is another book that layers on top of this underworld journey. In ancient Egyptian cosmology, it is believed that passing through these gates was necessary for reaching ultimate salvation and eternal life. Sorry, just pardon me for a second. Blah, 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 blah.
Get onto the list.
Blah, blah, blah. I know. I'm like, just come on, man. Where are you? Sorry, we're just going through kind of what they symbolically mean and stuff. Pardon me. Sorry. Sorry. Sounds like the scene of the Two Sisters Never Ending Story. Yeah, 100%. Oh shit, it sounds like me just going ugh. Okay, we're here. Okay, so inside tombs on sarcophagi and papyri, so papyrus scrolls, archaeologists found ancient funerary texts to guide the deceased through the 12 gates, like the Umduit, that which is in the underworld, the Book of the Gates and the Book of the Dead. So all of these books work together to get you through the gates. The 12 gates, so each hour a gate. Basically, the journey through the Duat was divided into 12 parts, mirroring the 12 hours of the night. Now, I'm not quite sure on this because in ancient Egyptian times, they did not use modern hours. And so I questioned that when I read it. I was like, I'm not quite sure if that is how it's related, but there's definitely 12 hours to work through.
Yeah.
The sun god Ra would travel through these gates, facing challenges and adversaries each hour. Protective spells. The deceased needed to know specific spells to pass through each gate. These were written in the funerary text and required to be recited accurately. Now, they didn't need to know these texts when they were alive.
It was written for them.
Needed somebody to write it for them, and they would immediately receive all of the remembering memory of them.
Yeah.
Gate guardians. A gatekeeper, a watcher, and a herald guarded each gate. These beings were often fearsome creatures such as serpents or monsters, and the deceased needed to know their names to pass. That is why they have all of these depictions of these gods and underworld gods and that sort of stuff within their tombs. Knowledge of the netherworld. A comprehensive knowledge of the gods and the Duat was necessary. This knowledge was a sign of the deceased's worthiness to proceed. And then obviously they go into the judgment where they get judged on their morals and the sins that they haven't done. We move on to funerary practices, tombs and pyramids. The tombs in the pyramids layout and the texts mirrored the journey throughout the underworld. The passages of the pyramids were symbolic for the passages throughout the Duat. I found that a really interesting connection as well. So when you go into the Valley of the Kings and you go to see those tombs, the pathways that they have built to get to the king or the queen's tomb itself is the journey and the directions that they would follow, go through the Duat to get judged. Yeah. And then obviously provisions for the journey, amulets for protection, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. This basically all shoved into the tomb, wasn't it? You know, with
100%. So it goes
the little pussy cats and the little crocodiles.
Yeah, absolutely. It goes into all of this sort of stuff. And so there's so many connections through these older books or these older texts and things into the Book of the Dead, and then into what was seen as kind of that modern ancient Egypt as well. And one other thing, and I've got a whole heap of monsters as well that we can kind of talk about as well. But one of the things that I stumbled across on whyienjoy.com is oldest text found. So it says in 1842, the German Egyptologist Carl Richard Lepsius transformed understanding of Egyptian spirituality after he published a collection of ancient mortuary texts known in ancient Egypt as the Chapters of Going Forth by Day, or the Book of the Dead, in 2019. So it was the translation of the Book of the Dead is actually incorrect. It's the Book of Light, or the Book of the Way.
Yeah.
The Egyptian Book of the Dead is a term coined by in the 19th century for a body of text known as the ancient Egyptians as for spells for going forth by day. After the Book of the Dead was first translated by Egyptologists, it gained a place in popular imagination as the Bible of the ancient Egyptians.
Yeah.
I thought that was really interesting because it goes into things like the Rig Veda, which are the Veda files in India, basically Hindu scripture, basically saying that they're dated between 1500 and 1200 BCE, and they're saying that the Book of Two Ways predates that, which is interesting because when we went into the Vedic text and we went into those manuscripts, they say that the manuscripts were actually written on wood and documented into these things around that 1500, 1200 BCE, but they're 2,500 plus years older than that. They were just given orally or whatever else. It was passed down through the years. So interesting as far as like the timeline goes, how Egypt sits here, the Sumerian texts sit way back here, and then you've got the Vedic text that potentially.
So is there any way, is it made public, these the Book of the Two Ways? Is there stuff where it's there?
Yeah, you can absolutely search that on Google. It's very easy to find this information, 100%. Really, really interesting because it just takes one more giant step backwards to show what those rituals look like, what their world looked like, what their sacrifices look like, and how they built their tombs.
And the timeline is I think it's going back and back and back and back. The more that we're trying to, the more archaeologists or whoever keep doing this, it's just like the timelines are shifting all the time. So that's what I find really interesting. It's like, oh, this is the earliest. No, this is the earliest. No, now this is the earliest. So yeah,
absolutely. And it's so interesting to just lay that preface to then go into something that's so well known, like the Book of the Dead. And, it just really kind of it threw me for a six because I just didn't realize there was that much ancient knowledge that's being discovered. And I think we tend to just kind of skim over the top and jump straight into the modern stuff that is popular instead of
that's it. What has made it popular? The Mummy movies have made it popular, or other movies have made it popular because here's the Book of the Dead, because it sounds more ominous than the Book of Two Ways.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. And it's really fun to kind of make those connections to go, okay, so in that mummy movie, they chose this topic, they called it the Book of the Dead, but actually it's from this, and that's a
It's
real
from
thing.
this, yeah.
There are rituals to bring people back to life. That just blew my mind. I was like,
Yeah,
oh my god.
it's like the Stargate, though, isn't it? The Stargate TV show is based on a supposed Stargate that they found in Egypt. So that's where it all started, and and the
Yeah.
whole.
And there's that truth behind it. There's always snippets of truth. And I think going down those little rabbit holes makes those beautiful connections that you can then follow through, right? Oh my God, we go down so many rabbit holes.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. So, well,
Right.
the Book of the Dead. So it first appeared in like the New Kingdom. So, and like we're saying, it was evolved from like more from the coffin text. So, coffin text is literally what is just written on their, basically their coffins. It's not written on paper. It's not written into books. It is literally just kind of what they've taken off of this. Later on, there were kind of actual, like we're saying, the scrolls and that kind of stuff. But most of it was on like the coffins and inscribed in the hieroglyphics. So the New Kingdom started like 1550 to about 1077 BCE. And it covered like the 18th, 19th, and 20th dynasties of Egypt. So it's quite the New Kingdom and stuff. And there was so many changes that went on within that kind of whole dynasty. And so it became more and more things. So the Book of the Dead, so this is really interesting. So what you covered, like with the Book of the Two Ways, is that it was written by numerous priests over a span of 1,000 years. So this is not just like, hey, we're going to sit down and whack it out in a couple of months. This is like 1,000 years of text. So what would be really interesting is like, is that the Book of the Two-Way text, is that a continuous thing, or was it lost? And has it been found and then started up again? So, so that side of it, I kind of find quite interesting with what you were saying.
What a connection, eh?
Yeah. So the oldest of these writings, or they're saying with the pyramid texts, were exclusive to Egyptian royalty to start with.
So that's interesting as well, because the Book of Two Ways was not just, it was for everyone.
Yeah, but in the beginning, you said it was just for royalty.
Well, it was for royalty, but it was based on your wealth. So so they found sarcophagi with these rituals written on as well.
Yeah.
Oh.
Hang on. Remy! Yeah, let me just keep going.
Oh, Egypt. Hi, Egypt. We've lost her. We've lost her to ancient Egypt.
It's just the Chihuahua barking.
We've lost her to Mexico.
Little Mexican. All right. So these were adapted versions of pyramid texts. So they admit that they were kind of taken from older texts. So they were also written on coffins of non-royals, such as wealthy Egyptians and elites. So that was very similar. But by the end of the New Kingdom, they decided that the afterlife was accessible to everybody, because at first it wasn't. It was not accepted. It was basically the afterlife was only for royalty. It was only, for these high kind of ranking people. But it kind of changed, and then they turned around and said, this is actually going to be available for everybody to use. So they all had their, like the same as the Book of Two Ways. They had their own guidebooks written for them. This is like, supposedly on their lives. These are the trials that you are going to face. This is what your protection are. So it was very kind of, it was made for them. It was a book written for them. Boom, and off you go. So like you're saying, yeah. So it wasn't a uniform text. It was very, very different. So, because everything's been very personalized, so you can't actually, there are books out there going, hey, here's the Egyptian Book of the Dead, but it is very, very different. So there are like over 200. I think there's about 200 known kind of copies of the Book of the Dead that have been found in like the tombs and stuff like we were saying before. So the writings have been taken from them and kind of modified and put together for those. So, but it's interesting because they talk about the journeys of the afterlife, ensuring safe passage in the Hall of Two Truths. So that is in the Book of the Dead. So it's the Hall of Two Truths. Yeah. So which kind of comes from the two pathways. So, I'm saying each one. So in the Book of the Dead, 44 gods or goddesses appear. So they are to judge and test the newly departed. So I know for your one, it was Osiris was basically the big one. For the Book of the Dead, it was Anubis. So he is the god of mummification and the afterlife. So he's, everyone knows who he is. He's got the jackal head. Do you want to chuck a picture up? There's a picture of him.
Oh my God, yes, I do.
Pictures. So for those who don't know Anubis, he's the jackal head god. So he is always known as the god of the afterlife. And if you've seen the Mummy, you'll see him in there. So he's the kind of the one that basically comes in and he weighs the heart. So there's this big thing about weighing the heart in the Book of the Dead. So they believe that the heart recorded kind of like all your good and your bad deeds that you've done. So here he is weighing the heart. There he is there. So like in the little Coptic jar up on this side here is basically the heart. So the heart was weighed and it was needed for your judgment in the afterlife. So it was weighed against the feather of Mat. And Mat was the goddess of truth and justice.
Yes.
So the scales said they're there. So you can see like on the other side there, you can see the feather and his heart's there. So the scales were watched by Anubis and recorded by Thoth or Thoth. And if the heart balanced with the feather, you were rendered worthy to live in the afterlife. If not, where did they go, Lisa? They went to, what's his name?
I
forgot his name. No, we'll find his name in a minute. But if not, you basically went the other way, and it was her, the goddess, and
Wait. He went to
Where is it? Come on, Lisa.
He went to Amut, the bone eater.
The bone eater, So
she.
She is a she. So you really didn't want to go to her. That was not a good thing to do. So the narrative for this one is generally divided into the four main sections, kind of very similar to that. The deceased enters the underworld after they've had their brains scrambled, because this is where we were talking about Bob. Bob falls off a chariot. What happens to Bob? He gets laid on the slab and has his brain scrambled and all his organs taken out, and then he's we'll go to mummification another time, but we thought that was really funny. So the fourth sections are the deceased enters the underworld, regains his physical abilities of the living. Number 2, he is resurrected and then joins Ra to rise to the sun each day. So again, that similarity. Number 3, they travel across the sky before judgment in the underworld by a panel of gods. So they're like all the different gods there that are testing them and judging them on all these things. So this is where they need the books. So they'll be asked the questions and tested, all that kind of stuff. And then finally, assuming the soul hasn't been destroyed, the deceased can then go and join the gods. So luckily for them, like all the information is in those books, like we're saying, it's all made for them. And it's pretty similar to like the Book of the Two Pathways, but it's so here's Anubis here, Mr. Jackal himself. He's a pretty cool dude. You want him kind of backing you as you go under, so he can travel with you. So it's very, very similar to the Book of the Two Pathways and stuff like that, and the different things. But it's really interesting that it's these scrolls or these funeral texts were kind of evolved. So it's in my kind of feeling, it's almost like science, how science evolves. Sure. Kind of how archaeology evolves. So for them, it's like, okay, this maybe is not working. Let's kind of do it this way, or you know, it's kind of been modified, and who knows? But yeah, so to have, you know, but you think about it. So if that's been done over 1,000 years, how many of these books are out there? You know, but have been destroyed by the sands, or
Oh,
how
for
many
sure.
are still buried? You know,
Yeah,
yeah. So there's
absolutely.
another one there.
And there's you know, obviously, like, over thousands of years, and you're talking over thousands of years,
Yeah,
there are those adaptations and those changes, like any biblical text, essentially, right? You take the Bible, for example. It gets retranslated every 500 to 1,000 years, and a new version comes out, and it's very different compared to the Old
yeah,
Testament, New Testament. The same with the Torah and the Quran and everything else. Once it gets retranslated, and it has those sort of bias put into it, and
yeah,
obviously, you know, you go from a book like the Book of Two Ways, and then you go into changing dynasties through this, and that whole like that governmental change that happened throughout those years as well, you know, has a major impact on the rituals that they do.
when was Akhenaten? So he was, because he basically stopped all that. So I wonder if that's kind of when it was kind of lost. So that'll be really interesting to kind of go back and see his timeline, you know, because he basically came in and
Correct.
stopped all the worshipping of all these deities.
Yeah,
It was
yeah,
only
yeah.
one, you
It
know.
was only
So
one.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So but then it kind of picked up again, and then, you know, Cleopatra, who we're actually talking about next week, she was actually kind of helped bring back in some of those, you know, because she worshipped Isis and stuff like that. So and Hathor. So really, really, really interesting as to, you know, what kind of happened in that in between. Did it actually stop? So that would be really interesting. Is like,
Mm.
is there kind of this period there where there wasn't
Little connections, right?
any
Yeah,
stuff like that?
that's interesting. You can see this wonderful wee chap at the bottom here, where Anubis is kind of kneeling down, in this picture. That is a moot,
Oh,
and a moot is the bone eater. And basically, if you do not balance your sins, then she eats you,
yeah.
and she's lovely. And I've just got to, just got,
And yeah, I just want to say, look at the little stick figure that's on the other scale. Like, they've been drawing stick figures since people. I was like, maybe he didn't actually draw people either.
Oh my god, that's so
That's pretty much my drawing. I'm just going to draw a little stick figure. Here's my person.
hieroglyphs now. This is excellent.
I just thought that was really funny. So,
It's really cute. It's really cute.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So the goddess Amut, or she's also spelt Amit, A-M-M-I-T.
Yeah, there's several,
Um,
like, for a lot of the gods and goddesses, there's a lot of different
different
spellings, and
names,
you know,
and they
yeah,
mean the same, which is interesting because it's so similar to, you know, like you go to Australia or New Zealand or whatever, and there's different tribes that have different kind of versions of
yeah,
linguistics and that sort of stuff, eh?
yeah,
Um, so she's often described as a demon, and in many ways she fits the role of the guardian demons of the underworld. She did not have a cult of her own, but she did have great power and was consequently feared. And that makes sense once you understand what her job was. The
yeah,
name
yeah, yeah.
is generally translated into the devourer of the dead, or the bone eater, or the devourer of millions.
Is she supposed to have like a crocodile head?
Yeah, so she
It is
is.
a crocodile head. Yeah,
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 absolutely. So she is a crocodile head, lion body, and hippopotamus legs.
yeah.
And she's one of the biggest, scariest, and most human eating animals known to the ancient Egyptians.
How's that for a hybrid cryptid made by the aliens?
Ah, right. I was like, honestly, after we spoke about this last week, and now we've got the bone eater, this is just
Yeah,
brilliant.
yeah, yeah.
It says she's the being made of notorious man-eating. She's a man-eater, and I just think that's she embodies the justice of the gods, essentially, right? So, you know, whatever happens, she comes in and does the bidding of what the gods tell her to do.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so basically that's her job, and she is one of the main guardians of the demons, essentially, in the underworld, which is
yeah.
pretty freaking horrendous. I mean, like, if you were ancient Egyptian and you knew that you were going to die, my God, you would want to get your shit sorted, wouldn't you?
Yeah, like, oh my God,
Like,
hurry up and write that book.
I've got another one here called The Slaughterers. Do you want me to read that? I want to know.
So the slaughterer. We got a picture of the slaughterer. What does the slaughterer look like?
I do have no, I don't have no, I don't have a picture of them. They basically just look like the little dudes that have the bent knees. They're human form. You know, anyway, so of the Roman class of demons, the group known as the Wanderers and the Messengers sound relatively tame, with mundane names that sort of believe their roles as divine executioners. But there's no mistaking the role of the packs of demons known as the Slaughterers. Their main job was to bring disease, plague, and death to the people of Earth, as well as punishment to the damned, as depicted in art from the tomb of Ramses VI, showing them beheading the bodies of dead sinners. Why can I find that picture?
Misha's saying, so Pack and Save brought Stickman from Egypt. Yeah, pretty much. They have control of the first Stickman. Look at that.
And it goes on to say many of these slaughterers were associated with the goddess Sekhmet in her more malevolent aspect as a bringer of plagues, and her seven arrows probably evolved from the idea of the lion.
We talked about her last week, so she was very
So interesting little connection there as well, and we knew that she was in the underworld quite often.
She's very naughty, but she was very loved as well. So she had those two sides. She was a healer, but she was also she used to like spreading her plague.
100%. And I've got one guy. Hang on a second. He just cracks me up, and I just feel like he deserves a mention. I'm going to pop an image up real quick.
God,
and
what's going to pop up?
He deserves a mention. I'm just struggling a little bit with getting this guy up here. I'm sorry. Hold on, please.
Doesn't want to do
it. It does want to do it sometimes, and then other times he's like, nah. I don't know. Honest, I don't know if I'm going to make this happen. Just hold, please, for just one more second. Come on, Restream, get it on. Yeah, here we go. Okay.
The headless one.
He is called the headless one, right? So we're talking about demons from the underworld. The headless one of the stranger demons that is commonly invoked throughout the Greek magical papyri, is a figure known as the headless one, and remains otherwise unnamed. Although this figure probably has its origins in the far reaches of Egyptian religion, he became very popular in the Greco-Roman period and was occasionally identified with gods, including Osiris, the god of death, and Bes, a dwarven god who was a protector of households and the one most commonly supplicated figures in the Greek magical papyri. Fuck, who wrote this shit? Anyway, so the headless one, he doesn't have a name, but he's commonly associated with these big deities, with these high up deities. It says the headless one's association with two of the most benevolent figures in Egyptian religion should make it clear that people were usually calling upon him for divine aid and protection rather than praying to keep him away like some other demons. That said, the headless one is terrifying in both appearance and power, being described as having faces on his legs or feet with mouths full of fire.
That's a messed up genetic modification.
I know, right? If you actually think of these as real creatures or real demons, like, could you imagine? Like, he shows his displeasure by making the lightning flash and the thunder roll as the one who begets and destroys. It seems like even a benevolent god who had no head, but whose feet were giant mouths full of immortal fire would not be something you wanted to summon.
My toes are on fire. Look at my toes.
Yeah, but apparently he's well mentioned in a lot of the scrolls and that sort of stuff. So I don't know, maybe he's a real hybrid. Maybe he's an alien hybrid.
Yeah, the headless one. No, I haven't really heard of him, to be honest. Like going through a lot of stuff, I haven't heard of a headless.
Yeah, the headless one.
I mean, there's so many though, isn't it? I mean, there's just so much, and it depends on kind of what area that you're looking into. And
oh my God, yeah, you can see why Egyptologists specialize in one area.
Yeah.
Because it's just it's so vast, right? I mean, like the research that we do, there's not enough time to really go into much of it at all, apart from making specific little connections. And there's just so much information. There's just so much.
Yeah. So and that's it, it's spanning thousands and thousands of years. So, so it's like, do you focus just on one dynasty? Do you focus on just one area? But even that one dynasty, there were like three,
Yeah, and then you've got to do it by locality as well, and you can So it's crazy, but it's so interesting to kind of patch together a little timeline, I think, of these books or of these texts coming through, because it gives me a really great understanding of kind of how these could have worked and where those gaps were. And I remember talking to you ages ago, Jules, about there's a few hundred years in the Egyptian history that are missing. Do you remember that?
But I mean, it's like that for many other places as well, many other places around the world, many other religions and people. There's missing time, and that's it. So that's it'd be really interesting actually to do something on that, like on the missing time that's floating, or not floating, but has disappeared. So
for real, I was thinking that would be really interesting to actually kind of get into that and be like, okay, cool, let's
so which areas have these missing times, which places around the world, which religions. So even in the Americas and in Europe and stuff like that, you go back, there's always a time of missing time that seems to be so was that the Great Reset? That's what they talk about, if you believe in the aliens or whatever, it's like there was a reset, so something went wrong and then there was a reset, or was there a nuclear war, or was there really interesting.
It would be really cool to almost, I don't know, pull up like a virtual, like a whiteboard on Zoom or something, and then put these timelines together and look at it. And someone's probably already done this. We could probably find it from one of our amazing friends or something, but put those timelines together and see what those look like as far as like the gaps. Those line up.
Aliens here, and here.
Yeah. We'd have to make a little alien ship so we can stick them up.
So it's floating over here, it's hanging out here. We're like, okay, it's his fault.
Oh my gosh, so interesting, man. Hey, what are we doing next week, Jules?
We are doing Cleopatra, aren't we?
No, we're not.
No, we are not. What are we doing? I don't know. What are we doing, Lisa?
We are doing pop culture.
Oh, pop culture. That's right. Before Cleopatra. Pop culture. Our favorite mummies.
Mummies and Egyptian pop culture and that sort of stuff. And we're going right back and we're going right recent. And if you've got any movies and TV shows that you love, send them on through to us, because we'll do some research around it and find some weird stuff to tell you about.
Yeah. We've got obviously we've got our favorite movies like The Mummy with Brandon Fraser. Sorry, just can't help it. I love that movie.
Yeah, it's a great movie.
And also, right back to the very first Mummy movie ever made. And, so there's a lot of B-grade stuff out there as well, but some of them are just really, really cool. So let's get into The Mummy. And anything to look at Brendan Fraser is nice anyway. So, Tactical Bigfoot, you're here. Hello.
Hey, Mike. How are you doing? Are you in here, Mike?
Why isn't it just a notification? Oh, damn.
I'm really sorry. I actually screwed up this live a little bit. I kind of went to jump into Instagram and it shut everything down and it froze us. And I think in New Zealand at the moment I've got some pretty gnarly weather, so it's always a bit atmospherical and everything goes a bit pear-shaped. But it's lovely to have you here. Thank you to both of you beautiful people from getting over.
And I know Mike's got a live. You've got a live coming up soon, don't you? Is that, or have you been on it? Or
2 p.m. I think your Mike is dropping his episode. Mike, if you've got a link there, mate, put it down in the chat comments here, and we'll just hang out and wait for that one to come through. And if anyone wants to jump on that and listen to Mike's super interesting information in regards to Bigfoot research and the stuff that he's doing over in the States, he knows his stuff.
He does know his stuff. And he's a funny dude, and he's got a really good sense of humor.
My love,
he's like us. He gets on well with us. So
yeah, yeah, lucky.
We love Mike. Thanks, Mike.
It is episode 113, the return of Tactical Mike. And it's on the Sasquatch experience. So if you want to jump over there, you can pop onto the Sasquatch experience, Google search that, or jump onto Patreon and have a wee watchy, because it'll be awesome. We've got some super exciting stuff that's happening in our backyard at the moment. We can't really talk about it, but we will give you a little bit of information coming up, and certain little things will start dropping. Also, I've got a special for all of you that you may not know about, and we should have said this at the start. Currently, we are running a promotion where you get yourself a membership and you can get your bestie in for free. So if you want to be part of Cryptid Women's Society on our members portal, now is the time to do it. We've got a 2-for-1 going on. So you buy whatever membership you want for however long you want, and your bestie, whatever, make it an auntie, a mum, a sister, a daughter, or whatever, a partner, she can get in for free. So
how cool is that? So cool. And Mike's just saying he's added the link and he's on in about 40 minutes. So we'll definitely be watching that as well. Like, hey.
Yeah, super cool. And Juliet's going to Egypt soon. And what else is going on?
And I have no arms, so I can't go to Egypt. Where's my arms gone?
And yeah, we've got some real exciting stuff happening. So we'll keep you up to date, keep your eyes peeled, and we'll just go from there, man. And it's exciting stuff happening throughout the South Pacific, and we're going to bring that to everyone that wants to watch and listen and hear.
And learn and listen. Cool.
Yeah. And Juliet, have you got anything to sign off with?
No. Like, Dad, I just said Mike's got his thing on.
Well, we're actually going to pop over and hopefully watch that, because that'll be super interesting. Yeah. Send us some comments if you want to comment on this. Drop it underneath. Please subscribe. Please share. That's what the algorithm likes. And we will be here next week, same bat time, same bat channel, hopefully streaming to Instagram at the same time.
Hopefully.
All right. We love you all. Have a
bye. Oh, yes, and the Katy Perry song. Yeah, I know. I love that. She's got great makeup in that video.
ADHD. Just say goodbye.